Now that BYOD is coming to our classrooms, what should we as teachers be doing to prepare ourselves and our classrooms for BYOD? This video shares 10 tips that you can use to prepare your classroom for BYOD. Tip number 1, start with your policy. As teachers, most of us already have a cell phone policy built into our syllabus. We can expand that to include all electronic devices. You want to keep it short, you want to keep it positive, and you want to keep it broad. For example, students may use electronic devices only at the discretion of the teacher. A policy like that covers all devices at all times. It's also broad enough that students can't find loopholes and you don't find yourself in a situation where a very complex policy locks you into some decisions that you don't want to make. None of us want policies we can't enforce, so a broad policy like that keeps you and your students focused on the learning. Tip number 2 is to create your management piece. Students are going to need a way to know when they can use their device and to what extent. The management piece is your visual reminder or your visual cue to students that they can use devices at your discretion. A stoplight might be a good example. The green light means go. Use your device for anything related to the task. Yellow means you can use your device, but for very limited circumstances, like only visiting this particular web page. And red means, I'm sorry, no devices at this time. Having that visual piece in your classroom with a magnet or a sticky or a paper clip or some sort of visual cue that allows students to look up in front of the room and see at a glance whether your discretion allows them to use devices is a particularly effective way to control and manage devices in your classroom without restricting usage more than need be. Number 3 is to communicate your eagerness. You might not be that excited about BYOD this fall, but you know that you're going to make it a part of your classroom. So here's your opportunity to communicate to parents and students in that opening letter, that opening email, or even during open house, your perspective on BYOD and how you want to make it a positive part of your classroom. Invite parents to have conversations with their students about what bringing a device means into your classroom. Let parents know your recharge plan, let parents know your policy, and make them feel comfortable sending a device with students, knowing that you as a teacher are prepared for this opportunity. Number 4 is to create a recharge plan for your students. Your classroom is unique. You have power outlets here, you have furniture there, you have resources all over the place. So how can you use your classroom as an opportunity for students to recharge their devices? Look, not all devices last all day, and many devices in our students' hands don't even last a couple of hours. So they're going to need to recharge. You have a couple of options here. The first option is to allow them to recharge but not sit near the device. Maybe there's a power strip in the back of the room, not located near student seating, where students can recharge their device but not use it during class time. Maybe your classroom allows your students to sit near an outlet and there's maybe a preferred seating opportunity for those who need to recharge. Or maybe your classroom is designed where you can safely run a power strip into the student seating area. Based on your classroom dynamics, your recharge plan should be as permissive as possible while being safe, efficient, and not distracting. Number 5, design 3 trial activities that you can use at the beginning of the year to test and see how BYOD looks in your classroom. As teachers, almost all of us have that one pager, the document we want students to read near the beginning of the year, mark up the text, respond with questions, have a discussion afterward. These kind of activities are great for translating into BYOD. It looks a little like this. You walk into your room and you say to your students, I have paper copies and I have a URL posted on the board. I'd like you to choose either option and complete the following activity. As they begin completing the activity, you get to step back and watch how BYOD works in your classroom. How long does it take for students to take out their devices? How many students have devices? How many students prefer paper copies over electronic documents, even if they have a device? By standing in the back of your room, you put the information in the forefront of the classroom and you're able to see how students manage devices in your classroom. It may affirm, dispel, or introduce new questions about the way that students use devices in your classroom. Number 6 is so important. Inspire yourself. Look, nobody expects you to have BYOD-friendly lesson plans on the first day of school, but you're going to have to go out into the internet and find resources that you can bring back to your classroom. For example, if you're a math teacher, what are other math teachers doing with BYOD in their classrooms? If you're a music teacher, if you're a science teacher, if you're a debate coach, What other things are those people in those content areas doing in their classrooms with BYOD that works? I guarantee you those ideas are out there, and most of them you might want to dismiss. But many of them are perfect for your classroom, and you can adapt them to your students. Rather than having to sit there and think of how BYOD works in your room, inspire yourself and let others who have gone through the experience bring their ideas to you through the power of the internet. Number 7 is so important. Make the professional connection for your students. Look, musicians use iPads in the studio. Sociologists use tablets out in the field. Engineers use laptops on the construction site. Scientists use laptops in the laboratory. Mathematicians use laptops in their offices. The reality is that every one of our professional content areas has professionals who use devices to produce information, collect and produce information. So what can you be doing in your classroom to emulate those experiences? You might have to do a lot of teaming because not every student is going to have his or her own device. But as we reach closer to one-to-one, your activities should begin to emulate what professionals do in the field with their devices. What do musicians do with iPads in the studio? That's what our music students should do with their laptops and iPads and tablets. What do engineers do on the site? That's what the students should do with their laptops, tablets, and iPads. What do sociologists do? What do mathematicians do? What do debaters do? These are the sorts of things that our students should do in their classrooms with their devices. Number 8 is to design a trial group project. We already use small groups in our classroom for learning, so why not add a device or two to each group and give that student a specific role? Either that student is providing information by way of the internet or pushing out information, for example, a group response to a discussion board. By having at least 1 or 2 devices in each group, it allows for a greater free flow of information to and from the group. That changes the group dynamic and it changes what the group is able to accomplish. A trial group activity gives you, the teacher, the ability to step back and monitor how the devices work in small group learning. I love tip number 9. Incentivize a better mousetrap. Look, rather than you spending hours doing professional development, rather than you trying to discover every possible website that you can use in your classroom, have your students do that work for you. Your students have 6 other teachers throughout the day, some of whom don't use BYOD, but many of whom do. So why not incentivize your students to bring all of those ideas from all of those other teachers back into your classroom? Give your students some sort of reward, extra credit, free candy, better seating, whatever works in your classroom. Make a standing offer, and the standing offer should sound something like this. Look, I want to get better with BYOD. I want to get better with technology instruction in my classroom. If you can give me a better way of doing something, and I like it, I'm going to give you this reward. And the offer applies all year long. By doing that, your students are doing the professional development for you and bringing you only the best of ideas. That allows you to filter only those ideas that work best for you in your classroom and reward students who go out of their way to provide you with these extra resources. Finally, number 10, take a deep breath and be ready for anything. The truth is, we don't know how many students are going to bring devices on the first day of school, or the second day, or the third day. It could be 80%, it could be 50%, it could be 10%. But we know that BYOD is good for kids and it's good for learning. So here's our opportunity to open our classroom to BYOD. But we know it's going to be rough at first. Not all students will be able to connect their device. Not all students will bring their device. Not everything will work perfectly. But we do know this. It's good for kids and we ought to be prepared. So here's wishing you well on your journey for BYOD. Look for other videos in this series coming later this summer.